Hey everyone, welcome back to Paul's Model Works, and today's video is going to be about how to make your own scale surfboards. And the reason I'm doing this is because I have been wanting to make a surfboard for an upcoming build that I have going on, and doing a whole lot of searching around online. It doesn't seem like they're that easy to come by. I know there's a few different kits out there that come with surfboards and different things like that, but for the most part, none of them really were the surfboard that I was looking for, and I didn't want to have to just go buy a whole kit just to get a surfboard. So I talked to a couple of different fellow YouTubers and looked at some different stuff online, and it was brought to my attention that why don't I just make a surfboard out of balsa wood. So that's what I have done. I have a little surfboard here that I made out of balsa wood, and it looks pretty good actually. Let me get it up here for you. There we go. And turned out nice. Here's this side and the other side. So I just figured I would share with you guys what I do to or what I did to make this surfboard, and that way if you're looking for one or you're wanting to build something with one of these vintage wooden style surfboards, then maybe this will help you out. So to start with, these are some of the tools that I used. Obviously, first and foremost, you'll need to buy yourself a sheet of balsa wood. This is, I don't remember what thickness this is, but it's actually a little too thick. If you compare it to my finger there, you can see the thickness, but I would suggest getting something about half the thickness of this one. And that way you'll have the correct, thickness to start with. Next, Elmer's glue for gluing different parts of it together. This is it's the ready to use wash by the Detailer. I'm actually using this as like a stain so that I can get that two-tone look of the surfboard, like how this one is, where it has the center piece that's a little bit darker. All I used was this stuff for that. Some sanding blocks or sticks. The blocks work really good, so if you've got those, use the blocks. Sharpie, a X-Acto knife, tweezers, a ruler, and a little template that you'll use to get the shape of your surfboard. So let me go ahead and start doing this here and let you guys see how to make one. So I've already gone and cut a piece of balsa wood off of my sheet that's about the right size for making a surfboard. And then I've got my template here. What I did is, this is a long board, so the board is approximately 4 inches long. That's what I made it in my photo editing software. And printing that out, that comes pretty close to the scale size of a surfboard for your 1/24th, 1/25th scale models. But what you're going to need to do first is take your Sharpie, and we're just going to trace the outline of our surfboard onto our balsa wood here. Okay, so now we have our outline of our surfboard traced on there. The next thing to do is take your X-Acto and cut it out. Balsa wood is super easy to cut, so an X-Acto knife is really all you're going to need. And as long as you're cutting with the grain, I mean, it almost cuts like butter. Okay, so here's your basic shape of your surfboard. It's a little rough, but you'll be taking care of that here in a little bit. Now, since this board or piece of balsa wood that I have is a little too thick, I'm going to be cutting this one in half so that it'll be the proper thickness. Okay, so here I have it cut in half, and you can see there that that is a lot thinner than what the other one was. So now it's time to just basically start shaping it. And this is where your sanding blocks are going to come in handy. You're going to want to start with a heavier grit sanding block, and this will take off the most wood, and so this will begin shaping it and smoothing it out so that you have a nice smooth surface after you've cut. So you want to just take it and go along the edges you don't have to push real hard. And you'll notice a lot of the wood will come off because this stuff is just so thin and easy to work with. So I'm just going to shape it here. Okay, so here is our basic surfboard shape. It's nice and smooth around all the edges, nice and rounded. So now that we have that, then what you're going to want to do is start thinning out and tapering your edges. And this is where we'll also taper the front so that it has a little bit of a tilt up like a surfboard does. So again, I'm just going to use my larger grit block for this. We won't use our smaller grits until we're finalizing. But you just want to work the edges a little bit, and as you're doing this, just rolling it, and that will kind of give you that beveled edge that you're looking for. You're just wanting to thin up the edges and then round it. Okay, so we're beveled on both edges, and see if you guys can see this any better. Okay, there we go. We're beveled on both edges, so it kind of has that nice rounded look. Now we're going to work on the front of the surfboard here to get that upward slant to it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to work on the front here and give it that upward slant on the front like all surfboards have, just so that it, again, looks more realistic. Now to do this, you're just going to want to start working the front of this. Be careful you don't sand too much off, otherwise you'll mess up your rounded nose. But just holding it at an angle, again like you kind of did the sides, and just working it back and forth on that. Checking it often to make sure you're not taking off too much. Okay, that looks pretty good. And you can see there that the nose of that now has just a nice rounded up area on it. So basically the shape of our surfboard is done. We've pretty much got this thing shaped out, and now it's time to just detail it out how you want to detail it. Now if you just want this thing to be solid, wood, one color, then you're pretty much done, other than making your little fin for it. But if you want to do the little stripe down the center that's darker, then your next step is going to involve just a little bit of measuring. So what you're going to want to do is take your surfboard there and a ruler and find the center mark on it on both the top and the bottom of the surfboard, and just go a little bit past that on each side. And I am just using my X-Acto knife here just to make a little mark. You don't want to use your pencil or anything like that, because anything you do to this is going to show. So just making a couple of little marks here, this will allow me to find out where the center point is on this. Okay, so we have our marks made. Now it's time to cut the surfboard. You're going to cut it into 3 strips here, and this will allow you to have that center strip that you can stain and then glue back together. So you're going to want to be pretty careful here as you're doing this, because this is where you can mess up. But if we have our marks on here correct, then we should be able to just put this on here at our marks, hold it nice and tight, and make our first cut. And now we have 3 equal parts to this surfboard. And when you line them up and match them up, you can even tell that it was cut. They match up really well. So there's your 3 different parts to the surfboard. So now what we're going to do is we are going to stain this center part so that it will look darker. Now it's time to break out your stain of choice. And again, I'm using the detailer wash here. So it's going to use a brush and basically just apply it to it like paint. If you've ever stained before, then you know how to do this. Okay, now that we have that finished, you can just sit that to the side and let that dry. And now, while that's drying, we will work on the little fin that goes on the bottom of the surfboard. So I'm just using a little scrap piece of balsa wood that I have left over here from practicing on different ones and breaking different ones before I figured this out. But this one I'm kind of cheating. It's already in the shape, sort of here, of a fin. So I'm just going to cut that piece off, and you're just left with a little tiny sliver here. You may have to cut a bigger one, but you can see there that this is pretty much already the shape. So I'm just going to take this piece and work it a little bit just to make it a little more sharper and everything, and then that'll be ready to stain and glue on also. Okay, so I've got my little fin here ready for stain. So I'm just going to apply a little bit of stain to it. Won't take much since it's just a tiny little piece. And then we will let it dry. Depending on what stain you're using or whatever you're doing, may take a while for these to dry, so you might have to stain these and then let them sit, which is probably what I'm going to have to do with this stain or wash that I'm using, because it's an oil-based wash and it just takes a little bit of time for it to totally dry. Okay, so it looks like our pieces are pretty much dry here, so we can go ahead and glue this thing together. So you just want to get some Elmer's glue and it will work just fine. And I'm just putting it on this little glue tray that I've got here. And let's get a little brush and just brush your glue right along the edge of your surfboard that you cut. And you can apply a decent amount to it. You don't have to go too sparingly, because you want plenty of glue on there to get a good hold. And then you just take your centerpiece, make sure that you're lined up, and stick it on. Okay, and there's your surfboard with the 3 colors. And that's all there is to the main part of the surfboard. And when you want to glue on your fin, just the same thing. Put a little bit of glue on the bottom and just stick it on. And there you go. So now we're just going to let that sit for just a little bit so that the glue can stiffen up, and then I will show you how to clear coat it. Okay, now that we've got our surfboard completely built up, now it's time to paint it. or to clear coat it. And the clear coat I'm using again is just this Testors high gloss clear enamel, and it works really well. And you want to just build this up in coats, spraying a few light coats across it, letting that sit for a minute or two, and then spraying a couple more light coats, letting that sit, and then doing your heavy coat, and you'll find that you'll get a nice gloss coat out of that. So we'll go ahead and do that here. Just gonna shake my paint up real quick. Okay, so now you can see that we've got a few coats on this thing and it has a nice shine to it. And you'll just repeat the same clear coating process with the other side of the surfboard. And once that's dry, then you can, handle it. And if you like the one I made here, you can put a little decal on there for a surf company or whatever you want to do. But that is pretty much all there is to making your own surfboard. It's that simple. So hopefully you guys, if you're needing a surfboard, this will be an option for you, and maybe this will help you guys out a little bit. So thanks for watching. Until next time, keep building those awesome models, and I'll see y'all later.